Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to my recap of Season 13, Episode 9 of The Bachelorette. Last week, Rachel went to 4 different cities to meet the guys who were currently in the runnings. This week, we're down to 3, and Rachel is taking Eric, Peter, and Brian home to Dallas to meet the Lindsays. First up for a family meet is Peter. Before they get to the house, Rachel takes him shopping to pick up some gifts for her sister's baby. She's got a 3-year-old son and she's 8 months pregnant. Peter and Rachel pull up to the Lindsay family home. The Lindsay family home is gigantic and gorgeous and notably not in the hood, as Peter once assumed, because Rachel is black. I would just like to point out that Rachel's father is a black federal judge in Dallas. He provided a beautiful, spacious home for his wife and children. Before they go into the house, Peter says he has some thoughts to share with Rachel. He wants her to go into the house confident in their relationship, confident in them moving forward, and confident that he has feelings for her. Rachel's family is very cute. Her parents have been married for 38 years. The judge will not be joining us. There is no explanation. He's talked about very often so that we know that he's a presence in the family and that he's a presence in Rachel's life. I feel like the judge was like, nah, I'm not going on national TV on a dating show. Rachel's sister, Constance, fabulous. This woman is 8 months pregnant. Her face is beat. Her brows, amazing. Her baby hair is laid. Her curls are popping. Throughout the episode, she is giving you one maternity moment after the other. I remember once Rachel, I think she was talking to Brian, and Brian was like, oh, I was an ugly duckling and then I became a swan. And Rachel was like, me too. I was always overshadowed by my older sister. Makes sense. She and Rachel almost look like twins, but Constance does have just a bigger presence and a bigger personality. She wears all of her thoughts right on her face. I loved Sister Constance. Interestingly enough, Rachel's father is black. Her sister is married to a white man. Rachel's uncle is present. He has a white wife. So a lot of interracial love in the family. So if Brian or Peter were to be selected by Rachel, they wouldn't feel out of sorts. They wouldn't feel like the only non-black person in the room. Okay, one more thing about Peter. So after learning that Peter actually does have black friends, I find his comment about Rachel coming from the hood just that more offensive. You actually know black people, so the assumption that you would make that Rachel must have came from the hood really bothers me. I'm not saying you're a racist, but I do think he's ignorant about the black experience, despite having, this gaggle of black friends that he claims. The first thing Mother asks is, tell me about your family. Peter talks about his parents, how they met after a month and got engaged, and they've been together for 36 years. And Peter is very nervous. Like, he's rambling at the table, and bless him, he didn't say anything weird, ignorant, or microaggression-y. Off the cuff, he has the potential to say something offensive. And the family looks duly impressed with him. Everyone's nodding, everyone's listening. One thing that was really weird is Rachel and Peter start explaining their how we met stories. And I noticed this last week. Their how we met is, well, I was standing outside this house and then he pulled up in a limo and got out and I was really nervous. And, then he went in the house of like a bunch of guys, but he stood out amongst all these suitors. In context, it doesn't really have the specialness that you would like, because literally 30 other people have that exact same story, because that's how many guys were in the house, 31. Peter meets with Mother Kathy in the backyard of the house, which notably are gardens. The hood does not have extensive garden. Mother Kathy asks about if he's ready for a proposal and marriage, and Peter levels with her. He's like, I don't really know that I'm at the proposal phase yet, but what I will ask you for is permission to continue to get to know your daughter and continue to date her, and maybe it'll lead to something bigger down the line. Mother Kathy says that she respects that. Peter received Mother Kathy's approval and really the whole family's approval. Next up is Eric. I like Eric, I do. But he's like a little puppy dog around Rachel. He's never experienced these feelings before. And it strikes me as very boyish affection than it does a grown man in love. He's sweet and he's a good guy. He has great energy. Like, he lights up every time Rachel comes near him. He's a good dude, but I don't think he's a match for Rachel, and I've consistently said that. Eric and Rachel's first stop is the reunion tower, and then they head over to the house. Sister Constance is there with this ginormous beaded bow. Like, What is this woman's Instagram? I'm lightly obsessed with Sister Constance. Like the hair, the clothes, like does she have a maternity line? Does she work in fashion? Like what does she do all day? I'm not obsessed to the point of stalking. I just want to follow her on Instagram and look at what she wears every day. Because if you're giving me this level of fabulousness at 8 months pregnant, I want to know what you do after you get your snap back on. Mother Kathy hits Eric with the same questions that she gave to Peter. She wants to know about his family. He says that he grew up in a dysfunctional environment. The mother and father were rarely both around, and he wants something different from his life. They obviously like him. They're responding well to him, but they are concerned about his lack of relationship experience. Eric had never taken anyone home before Rachel. The last time he went home with somebody was 7 years ago when he was in college, and his longest relationship is 8 months, which is, you know, problematic when you're talking about spending forever with somebody and the longest you've ever pulled was not even a year bid. When he has some one-on-one time with Mother Kathy, he starts out congratulating her on 38 years of marriage, and it's like, oh, it's a privilege to be in your presence. She gave him very Sissy Houston face. She was dryly unimpressed with his compliments, but she did have questions. She wanted to know, what does marriage look like for you? Mother Kathy asked a whole lot of questions that need answers. Eric says that he wants to propose to Rachel. He asked for Mother Kathy's permission. On behalf of herself and her husband, she does grant such. Again, Rachel and Brown Eric look really nice together. They're a really cute couple. I wish I could be Team Eric. I really wish I could, so I could have my whole black love moment, but I really just don't think he's a good match for her. Last but certainly not least, Brian is going to meet the Lindsays. He and Rachel are going to wear their matching watches to see the family. But first, they're going to make a stop. They're going to meet two of Rachel's friends and co-workers, the women who initially pushed Rachel to try out for The Bachelor, which then led, obviously, to The Bachelorette. They are very impressed by Brian. Rachel confesses that when she first met Brian, she thought he was a douchebag. She was like, all that extra confidence and all that all charming everything. She was just like, I just thought it was like too much and he's laying it on thick. Rachel takes Brian to the house. The gang's all there, minus the judge. It's a very different energy with Brian than what the family gave to Eric and Peter. Brian is trying to tell them about his family. He says that he's his mother's only child and that his mother is his world. She comes number one in his life. Red flags pop up all around Mama Kathy's mind. Like, I'm sorry, what? Like, who comes first, your mother or your wife? And he answers the question. He says, you know, my wife. And then she asks him again because I guess he didn't answer with enough conviction. And Rachel finally has to pipe in and be like, Mom, like he answered this. As Brian's talking, the uncle like leans forward. Like no one is feeling Brian except Rachel. Mom is very concerned about him saying that he's in love. She's like, it's been 9 weeks. Like, no. Brian tells the sister, he was like, oh, I love your family. She's like, you've known us an hour and a half. What are you talking about? At the dinner table, the uncle asked him something like what qualities does Rachel bring out in you? And Brian just gives up. He just excuses himself. Like, we don't know where he went. He never did come back to the dinner table. The family transitioned to the one-on-one talks outside and around the house. You know, I've been Team Brian for a while. Brian, once taken out of the Bachelor bubble, doesn't hold up very well. And Rachel became very annoyed with her family. She's like, why are y'all acting like this? Because y'all didn't do this 2 days ago. And her sister was just like, he's not real. He's a good on paper dude with great physical chemistry, which is amazing for a jump off, but not for a husband. After the hometown visit, Rachel packs up the boys and they all head to Spain because this show has an amazing budget. This is what, our 6th country? First up, she's going to have a date with Eric. One thing that I noticed, Eric's a personal trainer. Rachel is a lawyer. One conversation that I would really like them to have as they're trying to figure out their lives and such, and if they want to be together, is their finances. It's real cute to think love conquers all until you have bills, or you're contributing 70% and your partner is contributing 30%, talking about he wants to be the head of the household and he's leading. But they're not having that tough conversation today. Today, they're having another very fabulous romantic date. We're in a helicopter. We're flying over Spain. We're looking at vineyards. They go to a monastery. They ring a bell. Eric is very nervous because he wants to confess to Rachel that he's in love with her. That night, they go on an alfresco date. Eric's trying to talk his way into saying that he's in love. So he's talking in circles and he's trying to explain how he arrived at love. He's talking about the experiences that they've had. She pushes him as a man to develop himself, how happy happy she makes him. And then he gets off track. He starts talking about like the emotional connection they made in the hot tub. Like, sir, what? Get back on the track, take this train to the station. It takes him a long while, but he finally gets it out to say, Rachel, I'm in love with you. And then a card appears. And the card is an invitation to the fantasy suite. This is my first season with The Bachelorette. I know nothing of these fantasy suites. It's explained as Rachel and the guys usually sleep separately from one another. But the fantasy suite is an opportunity for them to spend the evening together as a couple. I was very confused. Like, was this just code for if you'd like to have the sex, here's an uninterrupted, unfilmed place to do so? Rachel and Eric decide that they are going to stay in the fantasy suite. The next morning, there's a shot of the rumpled bed, implying heavily that sex took place, which everyone here is very grown. It's consensual sex. It was just, I thought it was distasteful. My other issue was, she's going to go on a fantasy suite with each of these dudes over the course of a week? I mean, far be it for me to police anyone else's chocha, but mama, that's a lot of use on that thing with different people in a week. Like, you must not have heard that Usher story floating around. Her next date in Spain is with Peter. They go to a vineyard. The owner of the vineyard doesn't speak a lick of English. Peter looks lost. Y'all probably should have taken Brian here. Rachel picked up on the gist. The owner gifts them their own wine cellar. Their name is on it, Rachel and Pedro. Rachel asked Pedro what it was like meeting her family. He says it was a great experience. He really enjoyed them. He tells Rachel that he asked Mother Kathy for permission to continue to date her, not necessarily to propose. Peter has said multiple times that he's not sure about a proposal in the time frame of The Bachelorette. So this is a big point of contention between them. She asked him, to explain further. And then this cute little girl appears. The little girl and her mother asked them to follow them. And Rachel and Peter go climb in a barrel of grapes barefoot. They're smashing the grapes to make the wine. And I've seen this happen before, so it's not like it's new. But it's something I don't need to know about the wine making process. I don't drink anymore, but I did consume a lot of wine in my day. And it's very disturbing, the idea that I was drinking wine that was once grapes that were stepped on barefoot by random mofos. At dinner that night, Rachel and Peter are finally able to have this much needed conversation. Peter explains again how he feels about the proposal. He's very clear about how he thinks about a proposal. He's like, if I propose, then I intend to marry you. I'm not just going to be out here putting a ring on somebody's finger and then be unsure about whether I actually want to spend my life with them, which makes total sense to me. Rachel counters that she doesn't see a proposal as a guarantee of marriage, at least not immediately, that they can get engaged and then continue to date and get to know one another. That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. I love you, Sister Rachel. I am only watching this show for you. And if you had not been my type of black girl, I would have stopped filming these recaps somewhere around episode 3. Rachel, girl, ma'am. What? Rachel's idea of a proposal is actually what a relationship is. Out of all of the guys, I think Peter is actually the best choice. Brian doesn't hold up well under scrutiny. Eric just doesn't have enough experience. Peter is actually practical. I feel like the other problem here, and it's one that a lot of women fall into, she's more focused on the proposal than the actual quality of the person that she would be engaged to. Like, she just wants the ring. She wants to be able to say that she's a fiance. If you want to make great TV, then yes, a guy getting down on his knee and asking for her hand in marriage, that's amazing TV. But if you really want a proper partner and a husband, stop focusing on the proposal, especially after 9 weeks, and focus on the character and personality and chemistry of the person you would actually be in a relationship with or engaged to. Because you got 2 guys who want to be engaged to you who ain't a good match. I know. Say I told you so. The guy who could be the best partner for you doesn't want to be engaged. And he's got a good point. I'm Team Peter. Who knew? So Peter has his stance. Rachel has her stance. Neither one of them are willing to budge. Next week, I will not be recapping. I'm traveling. Follow me on Instagram at Demetria Lucas Doyley. I'll put the link in the comments box below. In the meantime, be well, good people, and bye.